We'll be doing tonight Parashat Miketz. In Parashat Miketz, Paro has dreams, and so does Yosef have dreams in the prior Parasha, and so does Sarah Ufim and Sarah Mashkim, those two individuals who were in charge of the wine and the bread, who were put in prison. They also had dreams in prison. So what we see is that there's a big emphasis on dreams here, in these various parashiyot. So, because there's an emphasis, one needs to understand what's going on. What is a dream? A dream is a means of communication between Hashem and man. It always was a means of communication. However, during the time that we had Nevi'im, we had prophets, Hashem used the prophets to communicate with the Jewish people by giving them messages to the Nevi'im that they should transmit to us that something was wrong with what we were doing. And many of the prophecies were prophetic in the sense, not prophetic. They were prophecies that would be in the future, that would come true eventually, whether it was in that generation or in a very, very distant future, which is in our generation, the generation of Mashiach. So the prophecies were of different types. Some contained a message for that time, some contained a message for future generations. And the reason for that, as the rabbis tell us, there were thousands of prophets. Jewish people had many, many prophets, but not all of them were written down. The ones that were written down was because they will be needed for future generations. So obviously we see that prophecy is a vehicle, means by which Hashem uses to communicate with His people. And that was a direct means of communication. It was one of the highest forms of communication. However, after the destruction of the temple, we have no more prophecies. Even though it says that prophecy will come back to us, all we have today is a halom, a dream. As the verse says, "B'halom adaber bo," I will speak to him in the dream. And what that verse really means is that all prophets, except for Moshe, saw that prophecy in a dream. Even if somebody was awake during the middle of the day, walking down the street, and Hashem wanted to communicate to him, he would have to fall down. He would fall asleep. And then he would see the vision, the prophecy. Moshe Rabbeinu was an exception that pe el pe adaber bo. In other words, I would speak to him mouth to mouth, in other words, like a friend speaks to his friend, without being asleep, without seeing the picture, but clearly hearing the voice of Hashem. Moshe was an exception. All other prophets saw their visions at night or during the day while they were asleep. Today, other than the dream, we have something called Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh meaning that individual reaches a very high level of sanctity, where he is worthy to have this Ruach HaKodesh, this Holy Spirit, which enables him to see things or to know things that other people would not know. In other words, he's on a higher level and therefore he's able to see different things. But that's not only Ruach HaKodesh, where one can see all sorts of things. Even in prophecy, even in dreams, ordinary dreams, there are many levels. The rabbis tell us in the Gemara that a dream, a true dream, is only 1/60th of a prophecy. In other words, it's not on the same level as a prophecy. The reason it's only 1/60th is because most dreams are kash v'teben. It's a mixture of straw and hay. In other words, you need to know how to filter out the straw. So you should have pure hay. In other words, the good stuff. It's therefore difficult sometimes to interpret a dream because you have in every dream a lot of kash, a lot of things that are nonsense. But even dreams that are true can be seen on different levels depending on the level of the neshama of the individual. Now, dreams in general come in three parts. The first part of the night, when a person goes to sleep, what he dreams are usually the thoughts that he had during the day. They're always false dreams, total nonsense, no truth whatsoever to them. The middle part of the dream is where a person sees all sorts of wild dreams, things that don't make sense. As the rabbis tell us, an expression of an elephant entering through the hole the size of a needle point. It's something that we cannot imagine it in reality, but in a dream you can see everything in a dream. The dream can be very, very strange. The middle part of the night is the strangest dreams, where one sees things depending on his mazal, depending on the tensions that he's going through. If he's a military man, he might see all sorts of difficult dreams dealing with battle, like David HaMelech used to see many, many dreams of battle, because he did a lot of battle. And that part of the night is also a time when shadim, or demons, appear in a dream to an individual. There are certain demons that appear in a dream, whether it's women demons or men demons. The women, in some ways, are dangerous because they can lead a person or make him impure or unclean. If he was, especially during the day, involved in having unclean thoughts or pursuing unclean ideas, then they attempt to get him in the middle of the night and appear to him and try to lure him and do all sorts of things during that middle portion of the night. So the first and the second portion of the night, any dream that a person has is, of course, has no basis to it. There's nothing that he needs to be concerned of, except for, of course, if he has those bad dreams with the demons, that could be doing something wrong. And to that end, he should say Shema Yisrael much more b'chavanah, so he should avoid having those dreams. Another good segula for not having those kind of dreams is to sleep with your tzitzit. Even though we don't have an obligation to sleep with the tzitzit, it offers an additional protection for those kind of wild dreams. The real dreams are the ones that come at the end. Most of the dreams we forget, and we definitely don't always remember what part of the night we had the dream. However, if you wake up with it, the alarm bell sounds, and you just woke up from your dream, then you know you had it at the very, very end, or the third portion of the night. That portion of the night is the one that can contain real dreams. But as I said before, even the real dreams, not all of it is true. There's a lot of nonsense to it. But if somebody does have a real dream, there can be messages, something in the future will happen, or just a message that does not have any future value. It just means that they're letting him know something. I'll give you an example. One can see at the last portion of the night, a relative of his that has passed away comes to him in a dream, a grandfather. And your immediate reaction in the dream, sometimes we forget it's a dream. What are you doing here? I thought you had passed away already. But that dream, of course, with a relative, especially a grandmother or grandfather that comes, can mean that if your wife now is pregnant, think about giving my name to the baby. That would be one example of why the deceased would appear in a dream. Another reason why he may come is to wish you mazal tov. Another reason why he may come often is because during the time he was alive, you were very, very, very close to him. That happens a lot with mother-daughter or father-son relationship. If it's very, very, very close, that relationship continues a little bit, even while the parent or grandparent is no longer around. So they see all sorts of things about their grandparents, or about their own life, together with that grandparent. There may be some hidden message there, or maybe not. In any event, most of the dreams that we have are hevel avalim, they're nonsense. We don't have to be concerned about them. If one, however, did have a dream that disturbs him, there are ways to deal with it. If there's any truth to it, and he's concerned about it, he should give tzedakah. Some people even fast after having a bad dream. So depending on what it is, if it really bothers him, he wants to be mevatel, he wants to annul the decree that they're telling him from Mishamayim that something's about to happen. And that would be good, because it's always best to deal with the decree before the decree actually arrives. So once it arrives, it's difficult to remove it. So if you are told, if you have a message that something bad is about to happen, that could be their way of letting you know in advance. Do something about it. Alright, so let's go to the next point. The next point is that we see in Parashat Miketz, later on, once Yosef attains the level of prince, he was like a prince of Egypt, the brothers arrive, and he does not reveal himself immediately. He, what appears to be, plays a game with them. He calls them spies, he threatens them, imprisons them. What's going on? It becomes apparent that Yosef is not doing it out of revenge. It becomes apparent if you read the whole Parasha and Parashat Vayigash too, that there's a plan here. So we need to understand what's Yosef trying to do. Why doesn't he let them know that it's Yosef? Not only that, one of the most obvious questions that people ask when they read Parashat Miketz and Vayigash is, okay, Yosef is a free man, he's in a very high position. Why doesn't he ever write a letter to his parents? His father, where he is. His father is a poor man. He thinks that his son is dead. He's mourning over him. So the answer to the two questions is one answer. His whole plan, the reason why he held back on writing, is because he was not sure how his brothers would relate to him. If he were to reveal himself right now, or if he were to send communication to his father, that he's alive, the brothers might still go after him and kill him. We almost did back then, when they threw him into the pit, when they sold him. How does he know that they have a change of heart? How does he know that they repented, they changed their mind? Here he's about to tell him, I'm Yosef. Oh, here you are again, right? How would he know? So he had to plan it out in such a way to somehow feel, have a feeling for their for what's going on in their mind. What's their mindset? What are they holding?
I want to know if they had the same jealousy for Benjamin or not, Benjamin or not.
Right. Then he wanted to see if they had the jealousy for Benjamin or not. Sure. And so he starts hearing things like the reason why we came through different gates. We did not come to one entrance in Egypt. That is why he called us spies. Why did you all come in through different gates? It's because we wanted to look for Yosef, our brother. We went looking for him. We decided as soon as we arrived in Egypt, since we were coming for food, we might as well look for our brother because we have a feeling he might be around here. So he's already starting to hear things, good, positive things. Then he sees that they stand up for Binyamin too. That happens in Parashat Vayigash. And there's other things that they say, that they express, and we'll talk about it next week, that he finally sees that they're serious. They're repentant. They have repented for what they did, and they're not thinking about going after him. Had he written letters, had there been a communication, it could have caused a big problem. First of all, Yaakov would maybe have known immediately what had happened. That would have caused tremendous more hatred. As it is, Yosef brought about a lot of hatred between himself and his brothers, right? Because of the things he said about them to his father. Here, by writing a letter, it was not safe. It would have not. Oh, you're in Egypt. We're coming, right? It would be very dangerous. Second of all, he realized with time that his dreams were coming true. That he, in fact, is in Egypt. He's becoming a minister. He's becoming a top man, right? Second only to the king, and that he sees that eventually his father and all his family will come down to Egypt, as the dream said. So there was no need for him to immediately bring about this contact. Figured with time it's going to happen anyway. Besides that, the Midrash says that there was a herem, that the brothers made an oath that nobody should reveal to Yaakov or Yosef. So there's a variety of reasons, but he also played it safe. He was smart. He realized that this is the best thing to do is to keep quiet and to wait for things to unfold by themselves. You look at Parashat Miketz and Parashat Vayeshev and Parashat Vayigash, and you see something incredible. You see that there is an overall plan by Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yosef is thrown into the pit, then he's sold. He eventually ends up in Egypt. He's put there in the prison for something which is completely a lie. But somehow, as a result of this prison, he meets the right people who reveal to Paro that he knows how to interpret dreams, and then he reaches the position of viceroy, and he's able to provide for everybody and save Egypt and save his family. Interesting story, right? So the rabbis tell us, the commentaries explain, this is not just a story. It's obviously a plan by Hashem, and in this plan you see Hashem's plan for all of Jewish history. Because all of Jewish history can be seen in this episode of Mechirat Yosef, or he being thrown into the pit and being sold as a slave, landing in jail and coming out and reaching the position that he reached. The Jewish people will be persecuted, will be thrown in the pit, will be put in jail, will be sold as slaves. They will be in galut, in the diaspora. They will be down. But eventually, they will come up. In other words, Hashem has a plan. All of this, what's going on, the scattering of the Jewish people, the putting them in certain places, all the many, many events that are happening, especially in our generation, is part of the master plan. There's a design here. And we don't fully understand it. When will we understand it? In the end. What happens in the end? In the end, with Yosef reveals himself. Right before that, the brothers had so many questions and they were puzzled by his behavior. They couldn't understand what was going on, what was happening to them. We're strange. Why he's accusing us of spies? He's telling us, we stole his gavia. What's going on over here? Chafetz Chaim, Alav Shalom, says many Jewish people, especially the generation of Mashiach, will have many questions. Why did the Holocaust happen? Why did the Jews suffer so much? Why were there so many persecutions? Why are we having trouble with the Arabs? Why can't there be complete peace? Many questions we will have, right? As soon as Mashiach comes and says, Ani Mashiach, all the answers, we will have all the answers to the questions. We will understand everything. As soon as Yosef said, Ani Yosef, he said, now everything makes sense.
Why he did what he did.
Why he did what he did. They began to understand that this was a plan. It wasn't just he was after them. He was accusing them falsely. Now everything made sense. The same thing Chafetz Chaim says, a lot of things don't make sense and we have a lot of questions. The moment Mashiach says, like Yosef said, Ani Yosef, yeah, Mashiach. As soon as he says those words, as soon as he arrives basically, we will understand, we will have answers to all our questions. Another point in Parashat Miketz is the brothers of Yosef come home, complain to their father that they are being mistreated. He was cruel to us, brutal, accused us of all sorts of things. So Yaakov says something very interesting the second time around when they go down. He says like this, Ve'el Shaddai yiten lachem rachamim לפני האיש ושילח לכם את אחיכם אחר ואת בנימין ואני כששחול ששחלתי. May the Almighty give you mercy before that man, and he should release your brother Shimon, who was in jail, and hopefully you will come back with Binyamin. Why does he say it? The Almighty should give you mercy. The Almighty should give mercy to Yosef, in other words to the viceroy, to the king. You need that he should be merciful on you, right? Why does it say that God should give you mercy? So the commentators tell us Yaakov was giving them a very, very important lesson. If somebody is cruel to you, it is because very possibly you were cruel to someone. Midah keneged midah. Think about it, Yaakov says. Hashem should therefore give you mercy, that you should have mercy in your heart towards people, and as a result of that, others will have mercy on you. That is what the rabbis tell us. Whoever shows constant mercy and compassion for others, then they have mercy and compassion on him from heaven. Everything is midah keneged midah. This attribute of Hashem of midah keneged midah, measure for measure, is very, very powerful. It's always seen. And Yaakov is giving them a lesson that nothing is for nothing. Yes, you say you will accuse falsely. But in the end, there must be a reason for this. So you need to think about it. When something happens, you need to think about it. Why is it happening? Not just let it go. So therefore, Hashem should give you rachamim. You should be full of mercy first. And don't be cruel towards others. If you will be merciful and kind, be nice to people, others will be nice to you too. It will be reflected from others' behavior, from their behavior towards you. The next point is what we observe, that all of a sudden the brothers of Yosef are fearful. These guys are very powerful, they're very strong. Just Shimon and Levi, when they were young boys, destroyed the whole city of Shechem. And they could destroy Egypt, they could cause a lot of damage there. But from the Pesukim you see something very, very strange, that they're all of a sudden fearful, they're afraid, what's going on? They're like they're afraid for their lives. What are they afraid of? What's going on? So the Zohar says something very important here. Nothing happens for nothing. If a person all of a sudden sees himself afraid and he doesn't know what the source of that fear is, what's the source of it? Where is it coming? Why is he all of a sudden afraid? Why is he nervous, like they say in English? What are you nervous about? It's because of the Chata'im. Like the Pasuk says, Pachadu betzion Chata'im. Who has pachad? Who has fear? Chata'im, those who sin. And because of the sins bring about fear in a person. That's a way of telling him, wake up. The neshama is soiled. It does not want to remain soiled or dirty. It's afraid of for itself. They tell us, for example, in the Kabbalah, that on Rosh Hashanah, if all of a sudden, out of the blue, the person for some reason begins to cry or tremble without planning. All of a sudden, he should know that at that moment they're judging his neshama. At that moment he's being judged. And the neshama feels it. The neshama is very sensitive, and you can feel that something is happening. The physical body, the guf, the nefesh doesn't feel these things. But the neshama, which is a chelek elokam ma'al, that part which is close to Hashem, the divine part of that we all have, is very sensitive, and it can feel and know certain things all the time. And it can feel something very, very serious that makes it cry. Rosh Hashanah is a siman, an indication that that moment is being judged. So same thing over here. The brothers all of a sudden have fear. They never have this kind of fear. And why should they be afraid of this man either? I mean, this is not who knows what. There's a lot of fear in their hearts. They feel like threatened. They're afraid all of a sudden. It's because of the sins. Zohar says. Because of their hata'im. The sins that they had were not fully atoned for. There was no kafarah. They did not do teshuvah. Later on we see from the various pesukim, especially in Parashat Vayigash, that they accepted upon themselves that what they did was wrong, they regretted it, they had remorse, they did teshuvah. Of course, little by little they made up for it. They made up, they asked for forgiveness. But initially, there was a hashbon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu exacted from them. For example, with Yehuda. I think we already did with Yehuda, right? Last week that I explained why he suffered. He lost 2 boys, he lost his wife, right? He had to feel the pain what Yaakov was feeling. And he was the head, he was the leader. If he would have said, let's not touch him, they wouldn't have touched him. So he's the one that suffered a great deal too. But all the brothers as a whole, in some ways, are responsible too. That is why they're overcome with fear. That fear, as Allah says, is as a result of the chata'im, which are still there, which need to be dealt with. Alright, now we go into another topic, which is a very, very big topic, and that is the whole Galut Mitzrayim. What is happening over here in Parashat Miketz? Slowly but surely Hashem is paving the way for the Jews to arrive in Egypt, where they're going to spend 210 years. What's so special about Egypt? Why is Hashem sending the Jewish nation to Egypt? Not only is He sending them, in reality, you know what's happening in Egypt? That is where they are formed. That is where they develop and grow. Even though they started off the seeds of the Jewish nation in Eretz Canaan, eventually they grow and they multiply in Egypt. Hashem brings them there and makes them stay there for a number of years. Not only does He make them stay there for a number of years, they're very difficult years. Many difficult years of avdut, of slavery. So the basic explanation of why they're there is simple. Mechirat Yosef brought about Galut Mitzrayim. Sold your brother, that is a terrible sin, you will go to Egypt. Right. It doesn't explain why they're there so long. It doesn't explain why they have to suffer as slaves, or they have to be persecuted and discriminated against, and later on even butchered. The little babies are thrown into the Nile, etc., etc. They suffer a lot in Egypt. Do they all sin? No. Even though there is a sin there is an accusation against the Jewish people which they have to repair, as I explained in the past. Every generation needs to deal with that. If the factors that brought about the selling of yourself is still around, there is nothing on the basis of hatred, the bickering, the argument, the fighting, right? If those qualities and characteristics are still around, people still have them, Jews still have them, then they are as though they're responsible for the same sin. It's like, God forbid, if we would have yourself today, we would have done Khalila, God forbid, the same thing. So therefore, it's not fully atoned for. And there's a continuous accusation against the Jewish people for not having repaired or for not having removed that problem. Those factors that brought about the destruction of the first temple and the second temple, actually. Right? But in general, the Sinat Chinam was something rampant in many, many generations. We've never really fully repaired it. And that is why it comes back to haunt us. And that is why it was still a little bit of a problem in Mitzrayim too. But that's not the only reason. Selling of Yosef. You must remember something. Hashem's method of doing things is so different than a human being. When we do something, we may do something for one reason. When Hashem does something, it could be for 110 reasons. When something happens to someone, it's not necessarily for one reason. It could be that is what they say, like they say in English, the straw that broke the camel's back. But that's not the real reason. There could be other reasons. And I use this a lot when I talk about the Holocaust. The reason why we don't know the reasons behind the Holocaust is because there's not one reason. But if you want one, the main one, just read the Torah. The Torah tells us that when the Jewish people don't follow the ways of Hashem, right, and they rebel, and they distance themselves, this is what will happen. But that does not give us all the answers to our complete satisfaction, because you still have to explain, well, then why 1 million children under the age of Bar Mitzvah who never sinned, who were not guilty, why did they suffer? What about all the tzaddikim, righteous men who did not sin? So you have a lot of issues here, the Holocaust. So it becomes a little bit more complex. But if you want a simple answer, it's in the Torah. That's a good enough answer in a sense. Something was wrong. Otherwise this would not happen. Hashem would not have allowed it. We know that there is a reason for everything. But I can assure you that with something like the Holocaust, there was much more than one reason. Not only was there more than one reason, it was a cheshbon aroch. The reasons had to do with many, many generations before. It did not happen overnight. If it says something is wrong this year, then do something. Right? This is not just a judgment of Rosh Hashanah, where Hashem decides what's going to be with that individual, with that nation, that year. For 6 million Jews to perish, which was a third of the Jewish nation, there was a lot of cheshbonot here. And the fact that the Eretz Israel comes back into our hands after so many years, not in our hands, right after one of the greatest Holocausts in Jewish history, that's not a coincidence either. So if one analyzes Jewish history, one reads the prophecies, one can gain a better understanding, have maybe a little bit of an idea of what Hashem's plan is. Because the plan is written. I will scatter you, eventually I will bring you back. And guess what? A third of the Jewish people are already in Israel. People don't realize this. They don't realize what